Well, hello there. I am Megan, by the way, and I am a second grade teacher. And this presentation is just going to be an overview of a plan that I have created around young digital leaders. What we're going to kind of talk through, there's a lot of information on my slide because I use this as my rationale, I used it as my action plan. My design thinking process and everything that is included. So there's going to be a lot of information on these slides. However, I also want to keep things as short as possible. So let's get started. Um, as we move through this presentation, the main point is going to be building citizenship through character traits, which those character traits are going to be gratitude and empathy. And gratitude and empathy are two character traits that go along with a curriculum my school uses called Character Strong. It's a social emotional curriculum that we've embedded over the last 2 years. And down here is my action plan, which you click on. You will be taken to this other site where it gives you an overview of um, how I laid out my plan and when we would do it. I chose to do the beginning of October to start this because I think the sooner the better. However, we start after Labor Day, but I left September to talk about routines, get comfortable, build relationships, all those things. So October was when I wanted to start implementing the character strong and the character traits, excuse me, and then start embedding a little bit of that digital citizenship. As we move into November, bringing in that common sense education curriculum with the digital citizenship. I really loved that. So that is implemented into my um, overall action plan here. All of November is going to be uh, leading up to and scaffolding this big project, which I'm going to be calling a gratitude project, which at the very end, students will be putting together a collage of things that they are grateful for at the end of November into December, around the time of Thanksgiving. What does gratitude look like? Feel like? What does it sound like? And then using what we've learned from empathy and how we can incorporate that into our gratitude project plus digital citizenship. So I want to go back to presentation here and get started with my rationale here. I just have listed my goals for what I was researching with my annotated bibliography. It was just gathering beneficial resources to know how to teach young kids, 7 and 8 year olds, how to be digital citizens, and how to provide opportunities for them that were going to best fit them and their interests and keep them engaged and also just motivated. So that's where I came up with this idea for a gratitude project. The goal of the project is just to reach their needs of being respectful and empathetic leaders online. I also want to be able to teach them how to have that digital fluency through Seesaw. That's a big one that my school uses, plus I use in second grade. And just having them practice awareness online and using empathy to understand how their impact online may affect others, and to also have empathy for themselves, empathy and gratitude even for getting to be able to do what they get to do. This first slide is just the main focus. You'll see it later on, but these are the three cute characters that we use with Character Strong. They each have their own purpose, their own name, and they kind of help teach my students about these two character traits. As you can see, this goes from October to December. Pretty big unit. So now jumping into the design thinking process. The first phase is empathy. So when I was thinking about this project, this gratitude project, I wanted to start at the beginning of the year, like I said, so that we started off the year right away with expectations of how do we use technology in this classroom? What does my teacher expect from me? Where are we going to be going with this? And then I built it so that it went into the middle of the school year so that when we do come back from winter break, hopefully for the remainder of the school year, we can be jumping into higher levels of um, LOTE levels, LOTE. I can't remember if it's low T or how we pronounce it, but those levels are personal computer use levels. Uh, when thinking about my students in September with their experience, they fall into a level 1 with PCU. There's very little exposure in first grade. They have iPads in kindergarten and first grade. So coming into second grade, they're going to be transitioning from iPad to touchscreen to now using a Chromebook and a mouse pad. So that's going to be very challenging and just starting really slow. But I can predict that that is going to cause some challenges, which I talk about on the next slide. I'm hoping for throughout this process that students start moving into an ISTE standard 2 and 3 of becoming digital citizens and knowledge constructors. Some strengths that I hope my students are able to gain, and some challenges. Strengths, I'm hoping that they can become comfortable at a PCU level 3, and potentially even I could see some of them really soaring at the end of the school year and becoming a level 4 and 5, and just being able to create their own learning, create their own curiosity, and then solve those problems on their own, I think would be really cool. Some challenges I definitely see for students is becoming overwhelmed with the amount of critical thinking that's going to come from all of this digital fluency, this newness of navigating online, to taking their knowledge and applying it, and then also finding a way to incorporate their learning through the digital world. I can see students with ADHD being very impulsive when it comes to later on in the project where we get to comment on student work and post things. I could see that being challenging for them to also think about that cognitive flexibility of like, well, when I do this, there is an effect and it causes other people to feel this way. I could also see this becoming overwhelming for students with disabilities. Uh, Students could lose interest and become stressed out. So those are my takeaways for my second graders. Moving into the design process, again, there's a lot of information that I'm going to be going through. But overall, I came up with this question on how can I use that social emotional learning from Character Strong curriculum into helping my students be digital citizens. So, my big question through this process was how might I create digital citizens using the understanding of gratitude and empathy? So, here is a list of ways that I brainstormed ideas on how I could help my students become citizens with that understanding. I think gratitude and empathy is something that they can feel first and then be able to apply it. And so teaching them those two traits of, what that looks like and feels like as a person. Now, how do I apply that to my identity online? Some big takeaways that I had from some of my research that I was doing when looking up this topic was spending extra time, especially for those kids that might have any sort of disability or struggling with processing all of this digital fluency and literacy, and um, just giving them extra time to explore, giving them extra time or modifications to it. And another one is just giving them explicit examples of consequences that could be happening, and practicing and modeling very systematically what digital citizenship is going to look like, and or what it really is. And so I want to use that through the common sense education curriculum with their digital citizenship curriculum. There are 3 different takeaways that I used from my annotated bibliography. There were definitely more but these are just 3 big ones. From the article "Don't Teach Digital Citizenship, Embed It," I took away a ton from this article because it opened my eyes to the rawness of authentic learning with technology, and how when you take away our internet and all those things, we're so limited, where then you bring in the internet and all the resources that are provided through online access, and it's endless. And so in this article, it just talked about, allowing students to experience it being one of the best ways to allow students to experience real world problems and relate to their lives. They know where to look for information, they know how to look for that information, where to go, who to ask. And so I'm really hoping that in this project and in my classroom overall, that my students are encouraged to use Seesaw and the the sites, the resources and apps that I provide them to to take on that learning for themselves and have a little bit of um, autonomy with their learning. So I talk about that in this slide. My second takeaway was from a really neat, inspiring ISTE article that was called "Can Minecraft Teach Team Building?" And this was fun for me because I listed some quotes at the top that stood out to me from this teacher's perspective. I had never thought of using digital games as a way to, one, teach kids anything, but Minecraft is very educational with agriculture and other designing process and architecture. But uh, he talks about online gaming being a way to communicate and create a community with your class. And so I thought this was really neat in the way that I could incorporate some gaming online. I haven't quite figured out what game I could use, um, but a platform that could create a really neat, strong bond between my students online that could then formulate over to into the classroom and even then into the real world. My third connection to some of my annotated bibliography on this one was just talking about how important it is for teachers to help students understand the accountability with digital footprinting, and um, how when we teach them in our controlled classroom environment, what that looks like, what it could mean, what it could do, that then when they do go into the uncontrolled real world of things, that they know how to operate. They know how to um, behave in an appropriate way that they are going to be proud of and respecting of themselves and their peers. This was just talking about how I took in the ISTE standards into my classroom. The second standard of digital citizenship, I wanted to use it with Seesaw, with the class feed and commenting. And then also standard 3, the knowledge constructor, with the gratitude project, research, and interviews that they will be doing. So moving into the third stage, I have listed some ways that I wanted to incorporate the character traits and the digital citizenship introductions. These are just some developments that I have created. I thought these would be useful in helping students understand the purpose of the project and character traits and being digital leaders. Here are the low T levels 2 and 3 that I took into consideration when creating the gratitude project. Um, Asking themselves questions to then provoke research on what is it that I'm grateful for, with maybe there's pictures, maybe there's stories that they read that gain idea. I really don't want this project to be I'm grateful for food, I'm grateful for my family. I understand that that could be some students' level of understanding, but I really want them to grasp the idea and reflect on what it is that they're grateful for. Maybe it's waking up in a bed with warm covers, or being able to choose from 5 different cereals, something that's just a little bit deeper. Um, and just allowing them, going back to the low T levels 2 and 3, of just designing making decisions, based on ethical responses, scaffolding their own independent problem solving, um, those kinds of things. moving into what my prototype, this is just something that I've created that could potentially be what I use. It's pretty rough because I want to try it out. I might use bits and pieces of it here and there, but this is um, just an outline of what I would like to try. So going back to this slide, up in the corner here, I have that we're going to discuss this character trait all month long. So all of December is going to be about empathy. I'm sorry, October. All of October is going to be based on empathy. So every morning, my school, we talk about in our morning meetings about empathy. We have pictures, we have videos, songs, reflections, turn in talks, games, even where they all relate back to empathy. So students really get involved with this trait and then hopefully are able to continue. We talk about them and it develops and domino effects into the following month. But for October, talking about empathy, and with that, going into talking about digital citizenship. So we would follow along with Common Sense Education's digital citizenships. This would be lesson 1. Pass through that. In that same week, at the beginning of October, I want to introduce what is citizenship, but then also how do we balance time on technology? So, kind of incorporating one or two characters, one or two digital citizens uh, online here. So we talked about arms, excuse me. Week 2 would also be talking about guts and what that means. We do some practice with that. I've linked down here at the bottom directly to the web page that has all of the lessons so that it's easy for me to find. Moving past that, we would talk about week 2. I had to pause there, I'm sorry. But going back to talking about digital footprinting, meeting feet, that would also be in week 2. Week 3 would be meeting hearts, discussing ways we can be kind. How to stand up for people, also week 3, meeting legs. And then week 4, meeting our digital citizen head. Sorry about that. Then moving into week 1 of November, we would introduce the next character trait, gratitude. Again, talk about all month long. Here would be some practicing commenting as a whole group. Very important. I went to do a lot of whole group commenting and trying some things out with talking about gratitude. Modeling what that would look like to comment online to my peers, that sort of thing. Again, more practice this time. Wouldn't just be typing out something, it would maybe be recording and doing a little interview with a friend, a family member. It could be typed, it could be recorded, it could be a video, but talking about a rose, a thorn, and a bud. A rose being something good, a thorn being something that is really hard for them, and a bud is something that they are maybe looking forward to or hoping for growing on. And then last but not least would be kind of moving into that enabling commenting and assigned practice. So this is just an example of a page on Seesaw, someone else's project that gives someone's project that they have made. And then it shows down here at the bottom that there are comments and these students are asking questions, they're giving compliments. And so just the nice thing about Seesaw as well is that I can approve student communication, and before allowing it to go to that student, I can preview it ahead of time. So this is pretty much what the gratitude project will look like. Students will explore pictures, websites, books, other types of media on what gratitude looks like, sounds like, and feels like. And then students will start to create their own collage. So it could be a video, it could be bunch of photos, it could be audio recordings of interviews with people, or anything really. But students should have 3 to 5 examples of what they are grateful for and why. And then they can choose to either do this all on Seesaw, or they could choose to do it in a paper form. However, they do all have to post it on Seesaw. That allows them to be able to comment and view each other's work. These are my references, and that is my overall look on how to teach students to become digital leaders.